Welcome to the next episode of The Next Rung. I'm here with Charlie from TUI, and my name is Lauren, and I'll be interviewing him today. So, Charlie, when did you graduate from the University of Chichester?
Yeah, hi Lauren, great to be here and taking part in the podcast. So I graduated from Chichester University in 2016 after a three-year degree.
Brilliant. What degree was that?
It's actually I started a different degree than I finished on, but I finally graduated in a sport and business management degree. Back then at University of Chichester, we actually started. When we started the degree, it was called something slightly different. I believe it was sport and fitness management. But yeah, as I say, during the degree, we changed it, and so we all graduated in the end with a sport and business degree.
Oh, brilliant. So I've just finished sport business and management degree as well. So yeah, I can empathise with what you've been through. So can you just tell me a little bit about your current role and how did you get there, about your path and when you left university and graduated to where you are now?
Absolutely. I'll give you a quick overview, and I'll try and keep it quick because although it's only been 6 or 7 years, it does feel like much longer, and I'm sure I could talk about it for much longer. But I do now find myself working at TUI. So most people, I'm sure, are familiar with the name TUI if you've been on sort of summer holidays, and a popular business in the UK, certainly. I actually work for TUI Musement, which is one of the markets within TUI responsible for all of the sort of tours, activities and excursions. And my current role at TUI Musement, which I've held for 6 months or 6 or 7 months now, is the internal communication and engagement manager. That's a very similar role to one that I used to have. So sort of I've built my career around internal communications and team engagement. And I suppose that's evolved from when I went to university, because when I first did graduate, I didn't immediately step into a communications role. So it's probably easiest to start from sort of graduation and work my way forwards that way. When I first graduated, in fact, it was even during university, I started, and I'm not sure if you still at the moment, Lauren, have sort of work placements in the courses. So actually the work placement is something I'll probably talk a little bit about during this podcast, because it really set me up and helped me get into the world of work and set me off on my career path that I'm still on today. I did my work placement at Butlins, Bognor Regis, so just down the road from Chichester, or just opposite the Bognor campus. And I first started my placement in my second year, doing a 210-hour placement where I was supporting social media and events at resort. So I was one of those typical people that probably went to university not quite knowing what they wanted to do, and I went to university just doing a combination of my two favourite subjects at sixth form, which was business and sport. Not quite knowing the career path I wanted to take, but just knowing I wanted to move away and have a good time. And then I needed a placement. Sadly, a few of my placements actually fell through that I was looking for, and so a lecturer at the time put me in touch with a contact they had at Butlins, and I was able to do, as I say, sort of secure a placement sort of in social media and events, which were two modules at university that we'd studied in the previous year and I'd enjoyed. And that role then at Butlins pretty much progressed over the next 4 years. So I did it for my placement, and then was offered a part-time role in my third year at university. So did it alongside my studies, and then once I graduated in 2016, I actually continued working at Butlins then for 3 or 4 more years down at resort. But throughout that time, my role really evolved. So I went from supporting the social media channels. So I suppose I was a resort point of call for all social media content. So we had a head office, and the head office would use me and a few colleagues on resort to sort of capture and build social media content to help post on our brand channels. And then I also was heavily involved at that time of sort of like our events, and Butlins at Bognor has a conference and events department and a conference and
Yeah.
event centre, and so I was able to get a bit of a taster of what the corporate world of events looked like there as well. I
Amazing.
then, sorry, go on.
No, I was just going to say that's amazing. It's a great
Yeah.
story how work placements really set you up almost for life. It's
Yeah,
got you into the role.
absolutely. It does feel like that, and all by chance, really. And I
Yeah,
suppose I then moved into falling into or working in under the sales department
yeah,
at Butlins Bognor Regis. I sort of evolved into a sales manager role, which means I
brilliant.
sort of broadened my breadth of responsibilities and managed a team across our on resort booking shop and our on resort call centre and our on
Mhm.
resorts day visits department, as well as continuing the social media support that I did. And I suppose it's at that real time, so probably about 2018, so a couple of years into the world of work, that I first started really getting my teeth into a comms role, which has brought me to where
Yeah.
I am today. And that was because our senior leadership team across resort and our resort director in particular um, noticed and found a challenge that they sort of had in communicating to the wider resort. So
Hmm.
if you picture a resort probably of over 1,000, sometimes 12, 1,300 employees
Yeah.
during our summer season, that's a huge team to sort
Yeah.
of communicate with and keep engaged. And I
Mhm.
think there were certainly some challenges from our that our leaders across the resort and our director was finding just in engaging and communicating with those people. And so as someone of that generation, I sort of worked quite closely with the leaders at the time to create some internal communication channels to really try and support and drive communication and have a bit of fun with team across resort. So we set up some internal Facebook groups, departmental groups, and some resort-wide groups, and sort of just tried to use those as platforms to help us communicate with teams widely. And that's not all about just sort of operational comms or more boring serious comms
Yeah.
as of course are necessary, but it's also trying to find ways to really engage engage with that sort of audience and try and help people enjoy coming to work and want to come to work. So we used to do all sorts of fun competitions on there as well. And I suppose
Brilliant.
that's really what got me was my first taster of comms and got me passionate about communications. And then as we stepped forward into 2020, my personal circumstances was sort of drawing me wanting to move a bit closer to London anyway, which is where my partner was based at the time. And
Mhm.
a opportunity arose to where Bourne Leisure, so the parent company of
Mhm.
Butlins, were actually looking for an internal communications manager. Um,
Oh.
and that was at their head office, so up in Hemel Hempstead.
Mhm.
And as I said, it really worked perfectly with the timing of me wanting to move towards London anyway. And so I applied for that role and was successful. And so, yeah, became the internal communications manager at Bourne Leisure at the start of 2020. And I know exactly when it was because I literally had about 6 days in the office before
Oh,
we were
in COVID.
all told to start working from
Yeah.
home because of COVID.
Oh,
But actually, it probably happened. I don't regret anything, and it did really happen the best way because I was able to get a real sense of maybe a different side of internal communications that I hadn't experienced yet, which
yeah.
was crisis communications and sort of
Yeah, definitely.
dealing with comms in a crisis. Uh,
Mm.
so yeah, I went from resort, moved up to Hemel, and into my new role in internal comms manager at Bourne Leisure, and worked then remotely throughout the pandemic, supporting in a whole range of communications and once again sort of engagement activities for all team to try and keep team informed through COVID and what was going on with all of our sites closing and opening and closing and opening, and
Mhm.
as well, really just trying to highlight and emphasize some of the engagement campaigns that we tried to bring to team throughout that time as well, to keep team really engaged in our company. Obviously, there was a huge risk during that time that a lot of team would not only struggle themselves emotionally and mentally, but also sort of become a little bit detached from our
Yeah, of
business, and that's
course.
certainly not what
Yeah.
we would have wanted when we were knowing that we'd be opening hopefully just around the corner. And so we had a whole a whole comms timetable through that time to try and really keep engaged with our teams, whether that be different wellbeing activities or different fun weekly competitions that we could take part in, or hosting some live events for our team
Yeah,
to
it's a good
tune
idea.
into. So yeah, we really had to get quite imaginative quite early on just to try and keep people engaged. But as I said, that although it was a bit chaotic, or very chaotic at the time, I suppose it gave me a really good opportunity to be thrown in at the deep end of comms
Yeah.
and get a real view of what it can be like working in a crisis.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely.
and then so sort of halfway through 2021, I actually moved from Bourne Leisure to a sister brand of Butlins, which is Haven Holidays. You
Oh
might
yeah.
be familiar with
Yeah.
Haven, also part of the Bourne family. A slightly bigger business than Butlins is. So the Haven have got about 40 caravan parks up and down the UK, and once again a similar role in communications and team engagement, where I sort of was just responsible and tried to help drive engagement and communications across all of those parks to ensure that all of our team are aware of what's going on at the right time, and have the tools and resources to do their job, as
Yeah.
well as hopefully having some fun whilst doing their job. So
Mhm.
yeah, that sort of brought me to last summer, and I did that role for about another year, 18 months, and then as I said, last summer made the move. I'd been with Bourne Leisure as a whole, whether it be on resort or in head office, for 7 years, and so I thought it was time to get a bit of a taste of something different, which
Yeah.
is what took me to TUI Musement. And I suppose at that time I was really keen as well to experience a international company to work
Yeah.
for,
Yeah.
which is
It must be quite
certainly,
different.
it absolutely is. Yeah, I think working with colleagues all over the world, and that's
Yeah.
what we obviously have in TUI. We have reps based on every continent, and
Yeah.
so we yeah, it's certainly a different challenge to communicating, and all sorts of different things you have to take into account and be mindful of, whether that be your tone of voice that you're using within your comms, or trying to communicate with colleagues that may not be native English
Yeah, of course.
speakers,
Yeah.
trying to communicate and run events for people in different time zones, and with different systems and stuff. So yeah, it certainly posed a very different challenge, but wouldn't change it for the world because of the experience that I've got.
Yeah, absolutely. It sounds amazing. Obviously, your journey from university has been a roller coaster, and you've had a lot of experience to where you are now. I think communication is just so important in every job and every role. And obviously, it sounds like you're trying to make it a lot fun and trying to get
Yeah.
to, your employers to keep, happy in their roles and stuff. So yeah, it sounds like you're doing a really amazing job. So what would you say that are like your top three best things about your role now at TUI?
My current role, I would say, is in fact similarly to what I've always found in a communication role, is the breadth of teams that I have, that I'm able to collaborate with on a day-to-day
Yeah,
basis. So I think you really do need to be quite a people person to
of
be in
course.
a
Yeah.
communication role, and certainly trying to engage with teams. Um, so it's a slightly different functional setup in TUI where I
Hmm.
am now, where we actually have a communication department in ourselves. So
Hmm.
um, we I sit in a communications department working alongside a external PR communication team. So there's some of us that
Yeah.
work with internal comms, and then some of us that are external comms. But we work, as I said, widely partnering all different departments and functions across the business. And so really, yeah, the amount of people I get to meet is great. And for someone like me who likes to chat to people and speak with people, that's really great.
Yeah.
I suppose so that's number one. I suppose to
Yeah.
give TUI a bit of a plug, as you can imagine, with a travel company, an international travel company like TUI, there's always some great opportunities to
Hmm.
get out and explore
I
some
can
of our
imagine.
destinations
Yeah.
and work abroad. So within our Musement function, we've got offices all over Europe, really, but some big offices in Milan and Palma in Mallorca. So
Lovely. Yeah.
that's not a bad perk whatsoever. In fact, I'm
Absolutely
actually
not.
out to Mallorca just next week for a conference,
Oh,
which
that'd
is
be
really
great.
exciting. Hopefully, a little bit warmer than the
Mm,
UK is right now.
yeah.
Uh, so there are some great perks there. And thirdly, um, what I would say is actually with TUI, something else that I really love about my job is the flexibility that
Yeah.
we're all given. And I think part of this, don't get me wrong, like TUI is an absolutely great place to work, and fantastic company from what I've seen for the last 6 or 7 months. But I think part of this has come from sort of since the pandemic and companies having to adjust to a very different hybrid way of working.
Yeah, of course.
But TUI offers such great flexibility with
Yeah.
where you need to work and how you work, and flexibility around your role. Like, as long as you're sort of getting the job done, um, we're trusted to be able to work where we want. And TUI actually offer a scheme called Work Wide, which is encouraging people to work around the world if they
Oh,
would like.
brilliant.
So
Yeah.
yeah, as well as being able to just go on business trips, if I was to go on a holiday, which I've got booked over summer, TUI actually encourage you to take your laptop, and if you want to
Hmm.
not take a full, if you want to work a few days there, you can work from anywhere in the world, as long
Yeah,
as you've
that's
sort of
really
got
good work.
the setup and you've got your device and agreed with your manager around the time zones and stuff. You're really encouraged to get out and see the world and can work
Mm.
remotely. So that's something else that I think, yeah, has been really beneficial and I love about my job.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. I think you've highlighted the importance of of going into a company who are a good employer, because
Yeah,
obviously these perks are pretty good to me. I'd love to work around the world, so that sounds
yeah.
amazing. So what would you say is like the most challenging part of your job, and how have you kind of overcome that challenge or overcoming that challenge?
Yeah, I suppose in comms, one of the daily challenges that I face, and I know from peers across the whole industry, people this isn't solely to TUI, but this is throughout all comms roles, is really trying to constantly evolve and seek new ways of new engage the latest engaging ways of
Yeah.
engaging colleagues. Um,
Hmm.
and so to sort of put that into example, we've got within TUI Musement, we have loads and loads of reps across all of our destinations
Hmm.
that we support. And actually, one of the challenges is how we really keep communicating, keep engaging with those people that aren't which aren't your typical office-based workers. And when
Yeah.
I say office-based, I mean sort of home-based, so laptop-based. So
Hmm.
they're not the sort of people, they're frontline workers that won't be spending most of their days on laptops. So
Yeah,
they
of
don't
course.
have access to the same emails. They don't have access, or they do have access, but their role doesn't mean they are, daily looking at emails, daily
Yeah.
looking at Teams messages, daily having the opportunity to check our company intranet, which is another one of my sort of roles and responsibilities now. So it's sort of,
Hmm.
how do we reach some of those frontline workers, which don't have the same tools or the same opportunity to check these tools that our office-based teams do, and that I think you have to get quite inventive and imaginative,
Hmm.
and sort of always
Yeah.
keeping in touch with the latest tools and what's out there. But we have to tap into um, all sorts of channels, like digital screens, to try and
Hmm.
share messages in digital on digital screens. We sort of host sort of 6 weekly or bi-monthly town hall meetings where we try and encourage, everyone to come together at one time to listen to our exec and hear the latest business updates. We've obviously got our intranet, which we do encourage people to use. And yeah, another sort of channel that we've been using over the last year or so and we've developed is sort of a mini video series which gets released once every fortnight. And the idea about it is just that it's really short, snappy videos to share, with a different focus area every couple of weeks, to share sort of some top news stories or some top
that's a good
line
idea.
what's going on across our business. And actually it's just trying to think of different ways we can really reach and target and keep those frontline workers informed. And what we've also got to be very mindful of, and is a challenge, is that actually those frontline workers, we quite often need to communicate to them in a slightly different way to what we would our maybe more senior or more office-based teams. So we might have to adjust our tone of voice or adjust our messaging slightly, because probably the messaging that we want them to receive and what's engaging to them may be slightly different to the different audiences. So yeah, I've in a nutshell, I think that would, I'd say, my biggest challenge, really trying to work out the best ways to communicate with different people and tailoring our comms to different audiences.
Yeah, so I guess like the enhancement of technology is kind of beneficial for you, because obviously, a while ago you might not have had the social media or the internet to communicate with people worldwide. So yeah, I guess that's helpful in your role.
Absolutely. And actually one of our best channels, I've spoken about a few of the channels that we do use to communicate, but one of our best channels today is that we reach our frontline team with, is actually just our TUI Musement Instagram account.
Yeah.
And so although it is a technically publicly available channel, we do allow anyone to follow it. What we do is we have that Instagram account for TUI Musement team, and actually, although we have to be therefore quite careful what we post on there, that it's not anything business sensitive or confidential, what we do know is actually it's one of the best channels for us to be reaching these Gen Z colleagues out at destination, that actually are often on social media and using that. So we try and really use that channel as a way of engaging those teams.
Yeah, and social media has a lot of pros as well, but some cons obviously you might have found too. So
yeah,
no, that sounds amazing. So if we head back to your degree, which may seem a little while ago now, how do you feel like your degree prepared you to entering the workplace? So we've spoken about work placement, and obviously it's really important if you have the opportunity to take that work placement, because it really can set you up for life. But is there anything else that stood out? Maybe a module, maybe a lecturer, maybe a bit of advice or anything like that?
Yeah, there's a few things. So I suppose, and you are really testing me, because this has been 10 years ago now since I started my degree, which I can't quite believe. I think there were some modules certainly that I completed quite early on, and I'm not sure if they're still exactly the same now, but we had modules, I remember, in sort of marketing and the media, and we had modules in finance. I suppose those three really helped me in my early days of being on resort at Butlins, and supporting with, as I said, some of the social media brand pages, certainly related to a lot of content that we had within the marketing module. And then when I progressed my role into more of a sales orientated role, managing the booking shop and bits, once again, certainly sort of I think back to some of the things we learned in our finance module, around budgeting and setting targets, and yeah, I think there was definitely crossovers there that helped me and set up. There was also one module that we did, which was and you'll have to excuse me because I forget the exact title of it, but it was around sort of managing people in an organisation.
I think it's just called managing people.
Is it called managing people?
Last year.
There you go. It was obviously in the back of my head somewhere. I think that module certainly helped give me some sort of insight and tools to to manage people through my years at Butlins as a manager, and then when I actually progressed into a communication role in head office with Bourne Leisure, we didn't have a communication department like we do now at TUI, and I actually sat under the HR department. So communications in the world of work can sit under a HR department as well. A lot of internal communication employees are HR specialists, and so I suppose that gave me some really good knowledge and tools which supported me in that wider HR role and having a bit of a people hat on, if you like.
Yeah, definitely. So you still feel like, you know, even though we're still running these modules now, that they're very relevant to your role and to your industry, and you know they are fit for purpose essentially.
Yeah, I definitely would say so. But for me, as I said, there's no module that I think has helped me out any more than the work placement, and that's because it really did get my foot in the door, if you like, at Butlins, and who knows what I'd be doing if I didn't do that placement. But I'm sure I wouldn't have had the opportunities that I've managed to find myself and create for myself now by starting during then.
Yeah, no, that's brilliant to hear. So what skills have you applied the most since you started working at TUI, and did you develop these or, you know, enhance these through your university degree?
Yeah, so I suppose skill wise, I think from, you know, being a internal communicator, the biggest skills that I really need to have, as I've already spoken about, is sort of around just being quite a people person and like having good engagement, really good sort of listening skills,
and communication,
and communication. So good writing skills when I'm sort of crafting different stories or different messages. And actually, that's not always, or certainly in this role, that's not always about you know, using longer words or you making things more complicated. Is actually being as simplistic as possible, which is a real skill in communicating. It's trying to pull out the clear, concise messages. So it's not about sort of who can write the longest, most convoluted comms with the biggest words. It's trying to keep it quite simple, and especially, as I say, in my company now, with an international audience where English may not be people's first language, that's really important.
Definitely.
I suppose as well, speaking. So public speaking, I've had quite a few opportunities in my career where I've had to do bits of public speaking or certainly, you know, speaking to larger audiences in person at sort of conferences and internal events, or even just on sort of Teams meetings. And as I say, we have some regular departmental all hands, we call them, which are sort of your big team meetings and some global all hands as well. And there are times where I might have to, you know, stand up and feel comfortable presenting to different audiences. And I suppose my first experience that I can really think of from doing that would have been at university and sort of having to do you know, presentations as part of assessments to my peers. And I suppose that was a skill that has really helped me in the future and in my career.
Yeah, no, that's brilliant. So what piece of advice would you give to a current University of Chichester student in terms of employability and career progression?
So if I was to pick any advice, and I hope this isn't cheating because I've sort of got two here that they're going to merge into one, and you'll see how they merge into one. But it's really trying to build your I think the way I've been successful in my career over the last 8 years, when I look at it, is, you know, of course, you know, hard work and commitment and graft, but at the same time, it's been around. I feel like you can create chances for yourself based on who you know and some of the relationships that you are able to build, and that isn't always easy for people, and I appreciate that it isn't always easy. But actually, I wouldn't be where I am today if it wasn't for a handful of leaders and mentors and mentees along the way, and even colleagues that I've managed to just build relationships with and that have then given me an opportunity. So I don't like to use the word, it's not what you know, it's who you know, because I do feel like I learned an awful lot of the what at university that has been valuable, but actually
Yeah.
I don't for 1 minute think I would be where I am today and in the position I am today if it wasn't for some key people along the way that were able to sort of support me and guide me in the right direction, and
Mhm.
you know, act as a mentor and give me feedback. And I was really able to build those relationships in. And I suppose what I'm saying is, if you can invest some time into the right people that are maybe influential, that
Yeah.
that you can build some good credibility with and build a good reputation, I'm sure there'll be a time where they will return that favor. Um,
Yeah, of course.
and I suppose that's part one. And my part two, which, as I said, I think does link to that, is what I think I've managed to do, and has helped me be successful along the way, is build a bit of a community on LinkedIn. And that's
Hmm.
something that actually I don't think I had LinkedIn when I first went to university, but um, I remember we had sort of a one-off session at university, um, and I think it was hosted by Paul Wheeler, and he sort of spoke
Yeah.
about LinkedIn, and I'm not sure if he still does that or if there's a guest speaker, but it was sort of speaking about the value of LinkedIn and building a network of people within your industry or within the
Yeah.
industry that you want to go in. And actually, I think that has massively helped me,
Mm.
you know, build a bit of a name and hopefully a good reputation for myself
Yeah.
as someone in that community, and sort of meeting with different peers. And you know, ever since university, it is something that I've tried to post on LinkedIn, sort of updates about what I'm doing, and if there's
Mm.
different things going on at work. um, and yeah, really just to try and build that community, because as I said, linking to before, I really do think that opportunities can come from who you know and knowing the
Yeah.
right people, and sort of supporting the right people as well as what you know.
100%. I completely agree with you. I think LinkedIn is such a vital tool now, and a lot of people use it. A lot of businesses obviously use it as well. So, yeah, I think I'd echo what you just said, that it's really important to have a really good profile. And yeah, we were spoken to about LinkedIn from Paul, but also our career centre. You know,
Yeah,
careers consultants, you know, actively encourage students to get LinkedIn. It's such a, you know, useful tool now and also
yeah,
in the future. So yeah, completely echo it. So the last question I've got for you
okay,
is, would you recommend our degree, I suppose, we've both done it, to
yeah.
an applicant, and why would you recommend it?
So yes, I certainly would. Sorry, I wasn't hesitating there because I was thinking of whether to say yes or no. I certainly would recommend the degree that we did. I'm just trying to come up with something that isn't going to echo what I've already said about
Yeah.
our work placement. But I think for that reason solely, a work placement was, you know, the as I said, the number one reason that I've been able to get to where I am today. And
Mhm.
actually, when you think about in the scheme of things, I mean, I did my work placement as a double placement as a double module at the time,
Yeah.
which I think meant that I had to give 210 hours for free,
Yeah.
which as a university student you might find quite daunting and think, how on earth are you going to
Hmm.
find that time? But I can guarantee you that you've got more chance of finding 210 hours to do work for free as a student as you will do
Yeah.
as you will do after graduating, when you're sort of in the world of work. So I know for some people that can be a little bit frustrating to do, but you know, for me, I actually really enjoyed my placement. I learned so
Yeah.
much
So
from my
did I.
placement, and I
Mm.
managed to build. So I did it as a 6-week full-time placement, and
Yeah.
managed to build those relationships in those 6 weeks enough for them to offer me a job throughout my third year. And as I say,
Yeah.
actually,
Brilliant.
that job throughout my third year was so flexible, and they were quite happy to, you know, have me working flexibly around my studies
Mm.
and my university degree, and obviously trying to write a dissertation at that point.
Yeah. Of
Um,
course. Yeah.
so, and I think that was all to do with how I managed to, you know, build some credibility throughout that placement and sort of prove what I could do, and that I'd be a really good asset for them to have and keep working there. So, yeah, I think that would be my number one bit of advice. I suppose
Yeah.
I definitely went to uni, as I said at the start of this, with a bit of a mindset of just wanting to get away and get out from home. And actually, I
Yeah.
think never underestimate how important that can be,
Yeah.
um, just to go and experience the university lifestyle,
Hmm.
and be able to, you know, move away from home maybe and have a little bit of independence and
Mhm.
build relationships which I will now have for life with some of the friends that I met, and some of the great times I had at uni will, as once again keep with me as sort of memories for life. So I think never underestimate the importance of just doing that and taking that leap, whatever it is you're going to go study, whether it be sport and business or another degree.
Brilliant. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate your time. I know you're a busy guy,
No problem.
and congratulations on all your success with your career, and good luck for the future too. But yeah, thanks so much, Charlie. It
No
was great to
problem.
speak to you.
That's fine, Lauren. And just on a closing note, if there is anyone, I know I've spoken a little bit about LinkedIn on here, and if there is anyone out there that is wanting to chat further about my sort of career path or degree or where I've got to today, or just wants to sort of connect on LinkedIn and have a chat, or has any more questions, I'm more than happy anyone sort of reaches out and finds me.
Perfect. Thank you so much. It's very kind of you to offer.
All right.
Thank you.
Take
Have
care,
a great
Lauren.
day.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Hi guys, I'm joined by Louise from the careers team, and we're here just to reflect on Charlie's interview that I just conducted. So what did you think about it, Louise?
Yeah, I thought it was really interesting. He's done really well since graduating, and he's obviously taken a lot of what he learned on his course forward, but also things that he did himself. Like he made opportunities for himself.
Yeah.
And it really got me thinking about that. So he talked, for example, one of the opportunities he made for himself, he talked about networking and the power of networking, and how, I think he referred to sometimes it's who you know, which sometimes is not the nicest phrase.
Yeah.
But, he didn't just know people. He went out there and built his network to provide the chance that there might be opportunities. So if he didn't know those people, those opportunities wouldn't have arisen. But he prepared himself by building a big network, and that meant that those opportunities would therefore be more likely to come up for him because he'd gone out and spoken to the right people.
Definitely.
And I think that's really valuable. And it doesn't just apply to networking; it also applies to going out and getting certain skills, or going and studying maybe like a training course. It might at this point not be relevant, or not be not relevant, but not be what you're currently doing, but it might open up a door later down the line that wouldn't have opened up if you hadn't done that at an earlier point.
Yeah, that's so true. And I think he mentioned about using LinkedIn to network.
Yeah.
We always really encourage students to use LinkedIn because it's such a powerful tool. I think one thing I took away from it was the power of work placement. Essentially, if you're lucky enough to have a work placement, I'd definitely do it. I know that I really loved my work placement, and I got a job on the back of it as well. So I can relate to Charlie exactly how he felt. It's so important to have a work placement and to try and thrive in your work placement, because you build so many connections, and it goes back to networking.
Yeah.
So I think work placement sounded.
Yeah. And as you said, that foot in the door.
Yeah, 100%, and you're in there for life essentially. If you keep building on that relationship and that, building a strong foundation for yourself as well.
Yeah, great.
So it was really good.